you know, like you do. I mean, before this meeting, I asked the Chief Information Officer of the House of Commons where the data was being localized and processed for Zoom, which I would be using. And I was, told, and I was very happy and impressed by this, that the data would be processed in Canada. And for your in-camera meetings, they're even more secure. So good on you. But sad for the users of TikTok.
Thank you. Appreciate
NC3, the National Cybercrime Coordination Center. And I wrote about this 3 years ago and said, we're already waiting a long time to get this rollout happening. But fast forward 3 years, and now that reporting system is 2 years behind schedule. And if you go and visit the website right now, it'll tell you that the system is still in beta testing and that it only accepts 25 cybercrime complaints for the entire country a day, which is really low. So in a series of access to information requests regarding the number of resources that were devoted in terms of personnel, I discovered that there are several provinces that don't have any cybercrime investigators, which is a really shocking statistic. And here in BC, the third largest province in the country, we only have 4 full-time people on the cybercrime team. So I do believe that these tools need to be rolled out more rapidly, and there should be more transparency around them. And legislation should be crafted around what we're seeing, because these tools allow us to understand what types of harms are being perpetuated. There's all kinds of analysis you can run based on the reporting data that comes in. And NC3 shows that ransomware, more than half of the reports that go to NC3 are about ransomware. So it's really interesting that Canadian legislation ignores ransomware, which is the biggest threat that the biggest cybercrime threat that we're facing. So one of the things that's interesting to take into consideration when we talk about Bill C-27 is also Bill C-26, which would regulate things like ransomware for critical industries.
Monsieur Malone, on a presque terminé.
Mr. Malone, the money invested by the government in the RCMP or on safety of platforms, do you think that we are getting what we have gained the benefit of the money?
For the RCMP in this area, frankly.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks very much, Chair. Sorry?
Okay. Yeah,
great.
Sorry.
So we have just a couple of quick minutes. Just quickly from each of the witnesses, if you could. Do you see merit in requiring app stores, like the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, in requiring parental consent for downloading social media apps for children? Let's say my question to previous witnesses was for children under the age of 16. So I'll frame it the same way for each of you, if you could.
I can start. I certainly don't think it would be harmful, and I think the logistics around age verification are tricky, and I probably don't have time to get into all that right now. But I think in principle, yes. But I might even just suggest to go further, since we're talking about trans data storage, which is to say, you could ban the transfer of minors' data to countries with insufficient equivalent protection if you wanted to as well. But just to say yes, I think that would be a fine thing to add.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Malone.
I would not support that. I understand the intent behind the proposal, and I think it's well-intentioned, and I consider that seriously. But I think it would have adverse effects that may not be what is intended. The reality is that we need privacy law that protects children by default, right? It shouldn't be the responsibility of a parent. There are mixed harms and benefits with these technologies, and I don't believe that parents or older generations are the ones that are always the best at navigating these technologies. I've seen lots of surveys from within the Privy Council office itself that show young people are the ones who use these technologies. 30% of teens get their news from TikTok, and a lot of older generations don't use them at all. So one of the concerns I would have is, and I wouldn't feel comfortable trusting, that responsibility to all parents. That's just my personal view. What I would say, though, is I do believe children should be explicitly referenced as a vulnerable population within C-27. I think it's unacceptable that children and youth in particular have been removed from C27 and are omitted. And that was a deliberate intent by the Ministry of Industry, and I have an internal brief that talks about the reasons behind that, and I'd be happy to share that with you.
Light on this very important issue. Mr. Malone, I'll perhaps start with you by asking, we had representatives of TikTok come into our committee, and through them we learned that the majority of Canadian data is actually not stored in Canada. It is stored elsewhere across the world, including Malaysia, Singapore, etc. What are the legal implications of that with respect to Canadians' privacy rights?
Thanks for the question. I think it's really important to identify the TikTok representatives who spoke as lobbyists. They're registered lobbyists and they do lobbyist work. And I think it's important to talk about a lot of the claims that they made were very disingenuous. There are easy bypasses around a lot of the safety controls for children that they vaunted. And TikTok has been caught, to respond more directly to your question, engaging in all kinds of worrying conduct with respect to user data. There's public